the last session I had for this user group, we talked about a data agent inside of Databricks called an AI BI Genie. In this session, we're going to cover that and then some. We're going to cover a lot of the data agents that you can create inside of Databricks. And we'll talk a little bit before we get into the details about, what are data agents? Why do we build them? Right now at the company I work at, 3Cloud, I'm holding monthly data agent hackathons that try to help people unravel this world, try to understand, when does a data agent come into the picture, and how do we build them? We have, or I have my team at 3Cloud. We are currently working multiple accounts where we're creating these data agents. And it's really the first year where we've really gotten hot and heavy in this area, and really trying to create consistent, accurate, helpful data agents. And in doing so, we realized the market has matured a bit since we started this journey last year. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and then show you guys where Databricks is at with all of these agents and how you can tie them together. So hopefully it's interesting for you guys. I wanted to kind of depict the problem that data agents helps to solve. For some, it may not be a problem that they think they need solving, but it is a different way of working. And you hear it time and time again that AI is changing the way we work, and it really is. So, and which is the premise of these data agents. So one use case or one area where data agents helps is it helps navigate your data essentially through conversation. Historically, for those of you who have been analysts or scientists or architects or probably still in these roles for a long, long time, we had SQL as our tool, and every time a question would come up, we'd write a query. Then, we give those results to the person who's asking, and then they come up with another question. And guess what? We're doing another query, and then another, and then another. And, there's this constant back and forth because, the end user doesn't know SQL, or, in a lot of situations, your executives, managers, whoever, don't have these tools. That's why they hired you as the analyst or as the engineer. And so this is your specialty, right? Well, there's a better way. There is a better way, and it's an evolving way where you can have a conversation with the data agent, not you, but your customer that typically comes to you. And believe it or not, it's a little bit like creating your digital twin, because instead of them coming to ask you, now they're just going to ask your agent, and your agent can respond with the correct answers. And then that frees you up to do other interesting things like adding more data or creating more analyses or whatever. The other area where data agents helps to trim time is in looking for that report. All of us that have been in this analytics business for a while, we've built hundreds and hundreds of reports. When we build them and they're top of mind for us, we can recall them like in a second's notice, right? Somebody calls us, asks us, hey, where's that report? We know how to point them exactly to the report, exactly to the report page, exactly to the right filter on the filter pane or on the page itself. And then, scroll down to the visualization where they're going to get their answer. And 9 times out of 10, that's great, but they're going to export it to Excel anyway and do, the whatever they do with Excel, or even, take it a step further, they'll copy paste that Excel into a PowerPoint and then finally, ship it to wherever it needs to go, the executives, the managers, or whatever. So again, all of this hunting for the right report and looking for the right filter and understanding the context of what you're looking at on the dashboard, can be circumvented just through conversation. So data agents are good because with those examples I just laid out, it helps us to get answers faster, or helps your customers get answers faster. They no longer need to submit a ticket or come and try to find you when you're answering 3 other questions. They can just go to the agent, ask their question, get what they need, and move on. And these agents are now coming equipped with deep reasoning. You guys might have heard about this in some of the AI tools you guys use today. Some of them call it agent mode, where the agent it queries the data source, gets the results, and then it reasons, what do I need to run another query? And then it gets those results, and then again it reasons again. This deep reasoning is something that the agents can do on their own without very little guidance from us, which can be, you could see it as a negative, but for somebody who's probably new to the data, or even for somebody that's been, very familiar with the data set for many years, this deep reasoning that these agents come with help to unlock new ideas, believe it or not, new things you wouldn't have normally thought of. Or in the case of Databricks genies, they might show you visualizations that you never even thought to create, and they're super useful. So in turn, what happens is you're ending up learning. You're learning more about your data. You're learning more about how to use it, new use cases, and yeah, that's been the experience with me and my team, the current project team I'm on. Is that all of my data engineers currently are the most caught up in terms of metric names, business context, business logic, stuff that used to be very buried inside of Power BI reports and semantic models is now being discussed in meetings. And how can we make things more performant and easier to find? It's a very exciting time. And we talked about the time it saves you, because instead of you getting inundated with requests, now they can just go to the agent, which frees you up, and therefore becoming more productive and probably more innovative in the other areas of either Databricks or whatever other tools you have at your disposal. Agents, I've already kind of mentioned this a couple of times, but it's really important to understand that agents help make things conversational. And that's the way you kind of have to think about these agents. It's not a query and response type of deal. You don't need to wait for the question. You can start asking deeper questions like, why is this trend higher now? Or why is this customer appearing, something that doesn't make sense in your data? Or maybe that there's something that's really good, and you want to know why it's good. What are we selling, or what are we doing that's helping either become more efficient or more revenue generating? So that conversation is instead of doing this where query after query after query, you have to wait because you have to construct the query from scratch every time, look at the results, analyze what you're seeing. Now it's a conversation, and you can just have follow-up prompts. After you ask for the sales trend, you can ask, why is the sales trend higher in November? And it might tell you it's because of Black Friday. And you're like, oh, I forgot about Black Friday. So what were the hottest products on Black Friday? And on and on and on. So this idea of follow-up questions, where ideas build upon more ideas, is very, very exciting. It's very, it unlocks new tools for both you and your customers. And it also will help you with your testing, believe it or not. If things should not look right in your data, or say you have consumption concerns, your Azure bill or something came in and it's very, very high. Instead of going and hunting and pecking, imagine if you had an agent that you could just ask, why is my Azure spend so high this month? Then it tells you it's because of your Databricks account. Oh, well, what about the Databricks, account or a service was so expensive, and it breaks it down, and you can keep narrowing it down with follow-up prompts and follow-up prompts. Instead of, what happens a lot of times in this world is we're trying to guess, right? Oh, maybe it's because of this. Well, let's go write a query and figure that out. Oh, nope, that wasn't it. Maybe it's because of this other thing. Somebody I heard, blah, blah, blah. And then you go write another query. Nope, that wasn't it. You can let the agent figure it out for you. Now, something I wanted to mention here before we, I just want to mention, it's very brief, is there's a difference between the agents we build, like data agents, like genies, and I'm going to show you how to build knowledge assistants and supervisor agents. That's very different than the agents that we use for things like coding agents, or even Copilot or ChatGPT. Those are very different. The way we use those, we do use them to help us, do things faster, learn new things, produce even better content, but it's different, right? Instead of building something, you're leveraging the AI coding agent to produce something for you, like a notebook or a pipeline or whatever. And there's key differences. When you're creating a data agent, you're going to be writing instructions. You're going to be writing instructions in plain English and in a way that a robot can understand. When it comes to coding agents, those you're going to be providing skills and what are called MCPs, model context protocols, where you are teaching the agent how you write code, or how you organize your code, or how you deploy code. And it's very different. It's not the same. Whereas in the data agent world, you're going to be testing prompt after prompt to make sure the information is accurate that's going out to the end user. In a coding agent scenario, you're going to be prompting and reprompting and reprompting until you get the code that you need or want, and until the code is runnable and correct, or until that test that keeps failing and failing finally succeeds. So it's very different. Okay, so agent bricks. We'll go through all of these different agents, and if you guys have any questions about any of these, I can't say I've used all of them, but I know half of them, and probably a little more than half. I'm going to show you at least 3 of them today, 4 of them, excuse me. So what I wanted to say here, pause for a minute, is and explain is that with agent bricks, it's not just what you're limited to in Databricks. There are external or third-party model context protocols that you can leverage inside of Databricks as well. There's something called AI gateways now, where you can basically register these third-party MCPs and do things like create a Jira ticket, or create a meeting invitation, make this more agentic, automate more of your workflows from your data. And it's really cool what you can do now with your data. This is an example of a supervisor agent that we're building right now at the client where I'm at. It's all, the back end is all Databricks. We have multiple genies, AI BI genies, which I'll touch on right now for those of you that might not have seen what they do. But we have some very narrow focused, small scoped genies that answers particular questions around metrics and stuff. And on the end of it is this custom web application equipped with Azure functions that do a bit of prompt wordsmithing with OpenAI before they get to the genies. And then once the data comes back from the genies, the responses, it also does a little bit of formatting and stuff so that it's nice and neat for the end user to see. So right now we have 3 production genies fully orchestrated with this external app. And yeah, a lot of best practices have come out of that. I'll touch on these as I do the demos. I want to give time for the demos instead of talking so much. So I'll talk about these as I go through the demos. These are the demos I'm going to cover. So I'm going to cover genies very briefly because I went through a whole session last time. If you guys are interested in that, Greg can provide a link in the chat. Just put a question there and he'll come back with that. I'm going to talk about knowledge assistance inside of Databricks, text classification, which is a way to take something very like a long string of text and classify it. There's other different AI functions that you can use on text. We'll talk about that. And then lastly, we'll talk about a supervisor agent that you can use to tie all of these things together: the genies, the knowledge assistants, the external or internal model context protocols. There's so many combinations of these things that you can do. It's pretty amazing what you can do in today's world. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that. And let me start demoing some stuff for y'all. Any questions so far?
Not seeing any in the chat just yet, but folks, if you want to come off mute, question, feedback, before we keep going. All right.
Cool. Okay. Okay, so thanks, Greg. If you guys do have questions, just raise your hands or put them in the chat. We can keep this conversational. Totally fine by me. So let's talk about this environment here. So I'm going to go to, this is Azure, or excuse me, this is AWS Databricks. It's not Azure Databricks, but the Databricks interface exact same. Where we're going to be in at first is, let's go into the genies. So in the genies, I have a lot of different ones. The one I just created yesterday for this demo is called Portland Reviews. Now let me show you guys the data behind this data agent, or this genie, which is here. Give it a second. So what I did is I created a synthetic data set with about 72 records of pretentious reviews, everything from food reviews to social events to I think brewery reviews, and this is just the one and only table that I have in this data set. Okay. The one thing I also did after I imported this data was I added text comments to all the columns, so that way the genie could understand what every single column in this genie is. So let me go back to that sample data. So there's some example reviews here, like, you know, Cascade Brewing, the dessert was great. Some of these places and food and beer and stuff might look familiar. Love the vibe at Bear Lick Brewing. The patio was sunny, no dogs inside, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So alongside this, I also have, there are the neighborhoods where this venue that was reviewed is being taken, where it's at, the venue itself, along with some other information that where I've already classified what the review is about, the sentiment, and some of the topics in that review. Okay, so let's go ahead now. You know, somebody wants to know what are the top top rated neighborhoods in this data set. So I can ask that. I think I've already asked that. What are the best neighborhoods according to reviews? and looks like the Pearl District is the top neighborhood, receiving the highest review count. Okay, that's great. So let's dig in.
Ooh, Pearl District. Come on.
Well, I don't know. Let's see. Let's ask why.
I can see why. I can see why. Okay. It's
Why?
definitely where all the popular, like, touristy area is.
So what do you think, Greg? Gresham?
But where is Gresham? Yeah, Gresham's not on here, which makes sense.
No, of course not.
We're
going to offend somebody, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Somebody from Gresham.
But where's the east side? I don't see, like, the east side. Well, I guess Mississippi Avenue.
Oh, so there's a east side, west side. Yeah, that's a good call out. Maybe this
Hawthorne.
Hawthorne. There you go.
We'll know what side is east and west. Keep in mind this is just one table of data. It has no other context, but sometimes depending on what kind of topic you're talking about, especially since it understands this is Portland, Oregon, and this is these are neighborhood names, it may understand that. So
now, Angel, we do have a question in the chat, and might be a good one to do it as you wrap this. But David was asking what governance guardrail security framework should be followed when using third-party agents with MCP and apps.
Very good question. It's one that I'm not very qualified to answer, but I can just tell you in the context of like where the client that I'm at, the guardrails are in that for that particular client is everything is closed off basically from a network perspective. So if we wanted access to a third party MCP, we'd have to submit a ticket to InfoSec and explain to them why we need it, the business justification, and exactly what we need opened in the firewall. So that's what I'd say is if you're working in a very stringent atmosphere, insurance, healthcare, in this case, it's an online platform called LinkedIn. You guys might have heard of it.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, it's very locked down. And yeah, we have to ask permission for everything we have access to, and they can reject it. They can say they may need to review it themselves. Understand that the third party that we want access to requires a subscription, for example. Okay, well that's a separate request, and then we have to go through security review for that. So am I answering the question? I hope I'm answering the question. But yeah, like otherwise, if you stand up Azure Databricks or Databricks and AWS, the guardrails you have really are the network, the VNet, the network configuration that your Databricks environment is sitting in, and then the permissions for which you allow MCP connections to happen. So I have a team of about 18 people, and they don't all report to me. We have 3 different groups: BI, data science, and my group is the data engineering team. So, but each group has their own set of permissions inside of our Databricks workspace. So, of course, data engineering, we have I don't want to say we have God rights because only a couple of us do, but that's only within the workspace. Then outside of that, you can control everything from who has access to what data, who has access to create genies, create MCPs. So all of that you can govern inside of it's part of Unity Catalog, and it's also part of at the workspace level you can designate who has permission to what. Hope that was
yes. And Tristan
answer.
Actually just asked another good follow-up question.
Yeah.
Is it generally accepted that when using a third-party MCP app LLM, any information submitted to it is now usable by that third party? And I can help answer this question too, at least from the app and LLM side.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I think third party, so MCP app LLM, all very different things, right? Like think of an MCP, I almost think of it like the best analogy is it's like an API in the code to working with, a certain system, right? And so there's MCPs and open source MCPs all over the place because some software companies have decided not to build their own. They've already provided an API, so they do hackathons or allow third parties to build that MCP. But there's MCPs out there like all over the place, and you can't trust them all, right? And so I think making sure that it's an MCP published by a reputable source and that it's been blessed by a software organization is where I would take the MCP part. From the app, unless you're using like a computer vision, I wouldn't say there's much security concern there aside from like, hey, are you going to give it your credentials? And then finally with an LLM, I think this is where most people really don't understand kind of, how like an LLM hosting is really what connects it to the internet or allows your data to be trained on. For example, like Facebook, when you sign up for Facebook, you give away all your personal information, right? Because you are signing up to Facebook right there, and that's the system. With a LLM or a foundation model that's hosted, in the cloud and being used for a certain system, doesn't mean that that large language model that's being hosted is connected to like the foundation model servicer that can now like do training on it. So, I think you have to understand, are you going directly to the service? Have you signed some sort of, data use that allows it to be trained on your data? But most often than not, these are just, hosted models that does not have like a feedback training loop where your data just gets, taken for advantage. And looks like another follow-up when third-party agents are used, who will own the data rights? Situation by situation. And when it's data rights, remember, when you pass a prompt, the LLM doesn't just all of a sudden have access to your data, has access to the metadata and the prompt and what you put in the prompt. The data itself is just being surfaced as part of the query. So you're not giving your data up just by using a large language model or by using AI. It's really leveraging metadata, at least if it's been built in a secure way. It's leveraging the metadata to do all of its actions and understand context, which is why metadata is so important. Which is why clean data and data labeling so important.
Yeah.
So anyway.
It's important to understand too how the MCPs on the other side work to fully vet that question. So make sure to talk with the vendor. Google Maps is a good example. So is Azure Bing Maps. When you send data over to those services, are they storing it? Are they not? Those are all really valid questions, but those are things you got to discuss with your third-party vendor. There's a lot of questions about MCPs here, so I'll just kind of talk about the AI gateway portion of Databricks, where you can register these model context protocols. You can develop them internally, and it looks like I do have model context protocols here for every Genie space that's ever been created, but you can also register third-party ones. And there's a handful here that are like come pre-configured, but you can also register your own. So a lot of great questions, and a little outside of the scope of this talk, but yeah, those are great questions. Keep them coming. All right, so we talked about Genies. Let's keep going to the next thing, which is the knowledge assistant. So knowledge assistants are a type of agent that where you can where Databricks has a specialized process of processing files. So the files can be PDFs, they can be Word docs, they can be PowerPoints, but these files aren't stored in a database. They're stored in what are called storage volumes. So before I start clicking on Agent Bricks, let me come back to the catalog here where I've already stored a couple of these documents in my storage volume. I have a storage volume here, So the way, if for those of you that might be new to Databricks, I'm in Unity catalog here. I'm looking at this particular catalog, my particular user schema, and a storage volume inside of my schema. Okay, I have permissions to this schema, and I also have permissions in this storage volume. So I have a few different PDFs in here. Let's just concentrate on the ones I downloaded for Portland. If we have time at the end, I'll talk about these ones that I downloaded for the transit system here in San Francisco. But for Portland, I downloaded a couple of PDFs. Let me see if I can open one up so you can see the content. Basic, guides that I found online about Portland and the different venues inside of Portland. Outdoor activities, regional maps, etc. So a lot of just I guess you could say unstructured data, right? There's no tables or columns. It's just a lot of text, a lot of images, and it scans all of it. It scans the images, it scans the text, and yeah, I thought this would be a great playground to try to figure out, okay, how can I make a knowledge assistant that helps me figure out, where to go in Portland to go eat or go find a good concert or something. I also found this Portland Insiders Guide. And the key to this one that I thought would be cool to test is the Bearlick Brewing Brewery. It says in this guide that there's delicious ranch pizza available. So I was like, okay, I don't know why that stood out, but that stood out. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try this out. So I uploaded these to my storage volume, and then in Agentbricks, which I'll go to here, it's this agents link on the left-hand navigation. This is where you can create an agent of the different kinds that I had a screenshot earlier that I showed you. Here's the knowledge assistant. I already have a couple of those made, so I'll show you what those look like. So this is the beginning of it. Now for the Portland Guide knowledge assistant, where I wanted to create an agent on top of those two PDFs that I just showed you. I gave it the storage volume location. So it, not just the storage volume itself, but the directory of the files. So you can, specify which directories in your storage volumes you want to process. You can also provide additional sources of PDFs if you want. There's also, if I'm not mistaken, there is instructions here. Again, going back to what we talked about earlier about creating these data agents, you're always going to have a set of instructions that you can provide, for not just like instructions on how to maybe use the information out of each file or how the two tie together, but also you could control the format, the tone of the response, keep it professional, keep it casual. You can say things like that. Or you can even say, if you don't like, let's say I asked this agent about Washington, I can produce instructions that tell it exactly what to tell the user in the event that they ask a question that this agent is not set up for. So a lot of things in here that you can do to help educate the user on what the capabilities are, but also educate the user on maybe things that that they should know before they come into this, like, how to ask for venues in Portland, how to, the fact that it has breweries and food. I didn't enter any instructions. I didn't get that advanced with it, but I could always add instructions here. Okay, so let's start by, I have a couple prompts here. So that pizza one, let me ask, what breweries in Portland serve pizza? and it's going to comb through all the embeddings and things that it does inside of those files. It does take a bit for the files to be processed. It's not hours. It just takes like 10, 15 minutes for it to process all of it. And I guess it would depend on how many files and the size of the files and everything. But here we go. Berry Lick Brewing has delicious ranch pizza available on site. Oh, Nostrana also has wood-fired pizza. Anybody go to Nostrana? I love wood-fired pizza.
Nostrana is my absolute favorite, and like down the street from me. So like,
So good.
I can vouch for that. Nostrana
It's
is
so good.
Awesome. All right. So then maybe I want to say, what other venues of interest are there around Nostrana? Because, I just got the answer from my first question. Now I, want a follow-up question. And here's where we're starting to have that conversation. Nostrana is located at 1401 Southeast Morrison for dining, Le Pigeon, Olympia Provisions. Is this
those are good.
is this
good ones.
accurate? Okay.
The one Dougford did close down. That's the only thing, but maybe again, stale data.
Probably, an old guide. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so here we go. I could say instructions, do not use or respond, or maybe I could just say Doug Fur Lounge is now closed. Let's just save an update. I'm going to copy this question again. And now I'm going to start over. Now that's a very important point with these data agents. If you provide an instruction, save an update to test that your agent's going to take that context, reset the chat. Okay. Very important. All right, let's see. What other venues of interest are there around Nostrana? Let's see what it does. This is the fun part. I feel like if you get a good subject matter that you can really relate to, one that you're really passionate about. In these hackathons, I have 4 data domains, and I tell the participants, pick a domain that you find really interesting, because that's going to be what sets you apart. If the conversations you have with the agent, the answers you help prepare it to take on. My challenge to the participants in those hackathons is wow me. Try to wow me. And fortunately for me, with just that one instruction, it came back. It did not come back with Doug for Lounge this time, which is
Nice.
good.
Worked.
Which is great. It worked.
Look at that. Instructions. I think what people also like to demystify is harnesses and creating guardrails is really just text.
Yeah.
It is really nothing more than a markdown file.
Correct.
So
it really is.
Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah. One thing we do in the hackathons is, we're working with sample data sets. So the sample data oftentimes is data from the past. We don't have any data for 2025 or 26 or 24. So that's like one of my challenges for people, is if somebody should ask, how much revenue did we make last week? And the agent comes back and says 0, that's not really accurate. It's not 0. There is no data for last week because we only have data from 2016 to 2018. And this is actually something that's been very powerful. I've observed at LinkedIn that they do is they have a enterprise search tool called Glean. And, what my team and I do is we manage a lot of their real estate portfolio, because they want to know how utilized their buildings are, all the amenities and everything that they do for their employees. They want to make sure that it's not money wasted. So, when I see a building code or an address or a site name that I just have no clue what it is, I'll feed it into Glean, and Glean will tell me like what it is. And sometimes if I got a code or a site that is no longer a part of LinkedIn, like it was closed in the past, it will come back and tell me that. And you're right, Greg, it's just text. So, should a product line end of life, at the end of last year? Should a business branch within a company get split into two, as of a certain date? Those are all contextual things that you can add in the instructions, and it's interesting to see what the agent will respond to actually teach the user or remind the user, so that when they see the results back, they don't just see the results and say, hey, this looks funny. There's a response there that explains why it looks the way it looks, right? So very interesting time we live in, where these agents will help educate us, remind us, teach us, and with just a little bit of clever instruction, so that for things that we don't want to forget or we don't want others to get confused by. Okay, so this is a knowledge assistant. Very cool. Very, very cool. A lot of fun. Now I have my knowledge assistant, and I have my genie, right? The genie that looks at the reviews of all those venues, and then I have my knowledge assistant that tells me all about the venues, the different venues in Portland, where they are, where I can go get pizza, where I can find APAs, etc. Right? How can I tie those two together? There is a way. There is a way, and it's called a supervisor agent. So here, when you create a supervisor agent from scratch, I'll start one from scratch so you guys can see all the different things that I can tie to this supervisor agent. I can add the genie space that I did for the Portland reviews. Say those reviews came from Yelp or something. And then I can also add that knowledge assistant that is just consistent of those two visitor guide PDFs. There's a number of other things that I could add. I could add another supervisor agent. I can add a vector search index. Here's that external MCP a lot of you had asked about. So a lot of context that you can give the supervisor agent. Now, the more tools you give the agent, the more the agent is going to take to think about the how to respond to your prompt. So it's going to take a little bit longer, is all I'm trying to say. So the more you put in here, just expect it's going to take a little bit longer for your agent to run, because it's got to traverse, if you have 10 different agents that you're trying to orchestrate, it's going to try to figure out how to apply your prompt to the correct sub-agent. Now, can I provide instructions to help guide it? Absolutely. Here's more instructions. Okay, just tick a box and I can add more instructions. Now I'm not going to add those from scratch. I already have one here. This supervisor agent Portland guide, which consists of exactly what I just said, the Portland reviews genie space and that knowledge assistant Portland guide. So let's see. We haven't tested anything about music. So maybe we could say, what neighborhoods in Portland have music venues? And you can see it's thinking. It's going to take a look inside of my Portland Guide Knowledge Assistant first. And it's going to reason. Based on the research results, several neighborhoods have music venues. Dougford Lounge, aha, that's closed. Jimmy Max, Mississippi Avenue, Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall, etc. Based on the search results, several Portland neighborhoods have music venues. Pearl District, East Burnside, North Portland, etc. Okay. So I could say, wait, I thought Dougford Lounge was closed. It's funny, with the hackathons that I hold, sometimes I'll do these demos and I'll ask it, please or sorry. It's funny what happens when you start conversing with these things. You start thinking that they're actually human. Yep, you're absolutely right. Apologize for the confusion in my response. I did mention in my answer that Doug Fur is now closed. Oh, I did? It did? Oh, it did. Okay, got it. So that's one use case. Now it took information. It reasoned from my prompt that all it had to do was go out to the knowledge assistant to get the answer, right? Now, what about if I wanted to ask it something where I expect a little bit of both? So we'll create. How do I clear this chat? I don't see it, but okay, we'll just ask it here. So I'll say, since I'm asking about music venues, what are the highest rated music venues? I don't have very many ratings, right? But that's not the point. The point is I want it to try to find for me which of the reviews that I do have, which music venues got a good rating. And this is giving me a lot of context. Portland Guide. While former ratings aren't available in the data, Jimmy Mac's distinction from Downbeat magazine suggests it's among the highest regarded. Okay, so here's something else about these agents. Because it's kind of a public, something public that it can go out and find out in the LLM behind Databricks that's searching for this. It knows other stuff outside of the agent, outside of the data that you've provided it. This is true for a variety of use cases. In one of the data domains that in the hackathon that I run, there was a commercial insurance data agent that was created, and the participant had asked his agent, what are the riskiest insurance claims types? And then it came back and said construction and I don't know, something else were the riskiest. And then he asked why. And when the agent responded, it said something to the effect that there's no specific data in this data set, but here's some other reasons why. And it went into, why construction property claims are very high and talked about fire, and it talked about a couple other things, nothing that was in the data set. So it was pretty eye-opening to see when you're dealing with a domain that's kind of more well-known, how the LLM will respond intelligently based on other input from the internet or from the public rather than just what you feed it inside of the agent. Okay, so last demo is on text classification. So text classification has to do with classifying a string of text for a set number of groups. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to take these reviews. These are reviews, right? These could be what do you call it when a service worker goes out and does a like a service call and they explain what happened in the service call. They type it into their system or whatever. These could be service call descriptions. These could be, student reviews, teacher student reviews, whatever. The point is that you want to fit these strings of text into categories that make sense so that you can kind of say, oh, okay, these reviews are about social events. These reviews are about food or drinks. And I put a couple of them in here And you could just keep adding more data to this text classification until you get these categories just right. And the reason I bring this up is because there are systems, third-party systems that do this. And they claim that they do this like for you. Well, it's that's not exactly true. While some third-party systems may do text classification like this, like an initial draft for you, they're 9 times out of 10, they're great starting points, but you'll have to massage them. So I just added some more data here, and let's see if instead of food and drink, if I wanted to change this category, what's going on here? It's still thinking. If I wanted to change this category to say food, and I said I only categorize reviews about food venues or food in general. Say, and I add a label for, let's call it breweries. Brewery reviews. Apply when a brewery or beer or IPA or any alcohol is mentioned. Again, kind of to Greg's point, it's just English. So we'll save. I'm going to hit this save and run classification, and then it's going to go through all those reviews again, and it's going to apply my new rules and my new categories. So this text classification reran, and if I look here, had balanced beer and fantastic blah brewery review. Great. Revolutionary Hall. First, the music review. Feels very Portland, hipster friendly, pre-game fans, music event review, live music night at Waterpark Front. Yeah. Okay, great. Now, say you get this to the point where you think, okay, I'm good with this. I'm good with this categorization. Let's go. Now we want to actually save this categorization in our data. It doesn't live in this agent. What this agent helps you to do is it helps you to figure out the categories. But if you hit this use agent button, you have a couple of different options here. You can create a Spark declarative pipeline to persist this categorization alongside the data that you're categorizing, or you can run it in a SQL function. And I would suggest you try to use this first before you do this. Start classification. What this will illuminate once this finishes up is it shows you the SQL function that you can use to run it across all your data. So I have basically a basic select statement where I want the review text displayed, and then I want that classification that I just established in a column right next to it. But when I hit run all here, it's going to run that classification across all 72 of my reviews. Now, this is both good, it's great, and oh, it doesn't work. That's fine. Error message response. Oh, okay. So this is the response for all 72. Got it. It's not an error message. It's just saying there was no error. So that's the response. Let me see if I can tell this thing to parse the response. Parse the response of AI classify in a separate column. Okay. Let's try it. Nope. Okay, that didn't do it. Okay, undo. Yeah. Undo. So anyway, I messed that up. The point is that the point I was trying to make here is with the agent, this agent, it's not something that you run independently. You still have to persist the data. So it's just a starting point. Can you just work that problem with that SQL function? Absolutely. And actually, if I go back to the agent, to agent bricks and create another agent, all three of these with AI extract, AI parse document, and AI classify, these three agents are not really agents. They're just UIs that you can say use agent, and then it'll give you those two options to either create a pipeline or run it in SQL. Okay. But you could do the same thing by just running SQL.